In only a few days, the Dragon Ball Heroes promotional anime will be hitting our screens, and I'll be doing my best to wade through the corrections and work out who did what. In the meantime, we have a whole bunch of design sheets along with a small preview, so let's dive in and see what we can expect. As predicted, Tadayoshi Yamamuro, the man behind Super's designs in the past few movies, is leading the project, appearing to be taking on the character designer, supervisor, storyboarding role, and possibly even more. We know he stepped away from the Super movie to focus on other Dragon Ball material, and this appears to be his little passion project for now. If you're somehow not aware of Yamamuro, then I have a Super Supervisors video dedicated to his history, but the bottom line is that he was once a Dragon Ball legend with some of the best artwork around, before slowly declining, adopting unfortunate traits, and ultimately defining the overly stiff and plasticky visuals that have plagued the franchise for the past 10 plus years. Putting that aside, these are fresh designs for major characters in 2018, so let's see how they stand up next to their previous iterations. Beginning with Goku, this one is probably the most substantial change across the board. Goku's previous character design was probably one of Yamamuro's absolute worst. It was rigid, proportionally awkward, and very literally wonky. The drawing is totally imbalanced, his head is off-center from his torso. Even a slightly later design from Resurrection F was similarly lacking, almost action figure-esque in its rigidity. With the debut of Xeno Goku in 2016, we finally found ourselves with a significantly improved design from Yamamuro. Goku's overall posture was much more relaxed and balanced, in spite of some discrepancies in muscle mass between the side and front-on views. Although still featuring many of the unfortunate traits of modern Dragon Ball, this marked a pretty substantial upgrade. With this brand new regular Goku for the Dragon Ball Heroes anime, this improved posture is back once again with the frumpy, broken design replaced by this sleeker and fractionally looser approach to the anatomy. As far as basic posture goes, I'm pretty content with Yamamuro's decisions here. It's certainly not as fun and loose as the fantastic work we're seeing from Shintani on the Super movie, but as far as more illustrative, robust designs go, this isn't half bad. To be clear though, I'm talking entirely about posture. Unfortunately, there are still traits in here that haven't changed much at all, and that does leave us with this case of taking one step forward, but still being many steps away from something great. Right in the center of Goku's face is of course the infamous gaping nose that has become a staple of Yamamuro's modern designs. We don't have access to the actual close-up expression sheets, but based on the trailer that I'll touch on later, you can see very clearly that those unsightly things are all over that thing. Likewise, Goku's hair is still remarkably stiff, featuring layers of awkward shading. It's very small, and although I don't want to keep making comparisons to Shintani since they have such different intentions, I do think it's helpful as far as showcasing the issues. One thing that bothers me a lot is also the neck and chest area. This is a step backwards from the Xeno Goku that I actually really like in this particular spot. The neck detailing was pretty minimal to match the less accentuated muscles, and the chest area committed to defined pecs rather than this weird hybrid of collarbone and pec that kind of looks like someone stapled something to his chest. In terms of clothing, I do wish they looked like they were hanging more naturally on the body. The extensive use of angular lines leads to the fabric looking a little too stiff, but at the same time, I have to appreciate that the line work is significantly more minimal compared to that 2013 design. On the whole, an improved design, but again, one that feels caught between Yamamuro's beloved classic designs and these strange new design decisions. Next up, we have Vegeta, a character who has probably suffered the most from Yamamuro's decline. In my last video, I spoke about how his hair had been shrunken down while also moving the base from the neck to above the ears. He also suffered from a very large head and broad body with very small shoulders and arms. Much like that old Goku design, the overall anatomy balance was totally thrown off, and coupled with the bizarre shading, it really led to this being one of the most unsightly characters in the modern era. This new design sadly does not feature such a stark improvement like the Goku one. There are serious anatomical errors on this sheet, and I'm sure some of the more perceptive ones of you will have already noticed the big one. Vegeta is lopsided, with one shoulder being significantly smaller than the other, and it is immediately obvious as soon as you flip the image. Pro tip to aspiring artists out there, flipping your canvas as you work is essential to ensuring your eyes aren't playing tricks on you and your work is correctly drawn. As far as some of the improvements go, Vegeta's head is finely proportioned with the rest of his body. The small hair that I mentioned earlier is now much bigger too, although it does still start above the ears, and I really do dislike the overly angular shapes. On the plus side, he's got pretty great angular eyes, and the nose is looking reasonably sized, with even the underside shaded like the old days. I don't know why Vegeta gets a good nose and Goku doesn't, but there you go. Not a great design on the whole, or a massive improvement, but I do appreciate a few of the decisions in there. Trunks is also in here, but this is pretty much along the same lines as his super design, so I don't really have masses to add here. He is following in his father's footsteps of having one arm bigger than the other, but we'll just ignore that and chalk that up to teenage boredom. Let's move on to the new characters, Few and Cumber. I'm just going to be blunt, I absolutely despise everything about Few here. From the gaping noses to the excessive highlights, the bland posture and series of dull, stock expressions, this is everything I whine about all the time, condensed into one sheet, and I hate it. I feel like I've been transported back in time to Yamamuro's worst, and I wish this did not exist. The same kind of goes for Cumber. I hate the way his hair is drawn, the shapes are so uninteresting and lifeless, his torso is incredibly broad in the rear shot, yet it's way more tighter and contained in the front view. That is admittedly a nitpick, but it's yet another weird inconsistency, and I just don't understand why it exists. This is of course to say nothing of Hiro's bizarre, edgy un-Toriyama approach to literally everything, but that is a whole different conversation. Anyway, let's talk about this short preview. I think, first of all, it's important to establish what this anime is. It is an online-only promotional series for a video game. It is not a fully fledged project as far as we are aware at this point. As such, I think it is probably important to keep your expectations in check about the scope of the animation. It is probably going to rely on storyboarding, direction, and impactful artwork over anything substantial. With that said, this preview looks terrible and is far below what I expected. Am I surprised? No, but I am kind of relieved because any fear that this was going to impact on the Super movie production has been totally squashed. From the very get-go, the storyboarding here is shocking. The beam struggle between Super Saiyan 4 and Super Saiyan Blue has absolutely no scale whatsoever. Much like many parts of Resurrection F, I feel like I'm just looking at two action figures suspended in front of my eyes. I am not in the action at all. I feel like an onlooker through a screen, and for me to feel like that is a huge failure. Trunks looking up at the sprawling city feels totally flat and again lacks any sense of scale. As we cut from scene to scene to scene here, it is flat shot on flat shot on flat shot, and the one bit of relief we have is a stock power-up pose right at the very end. There is no animation here, it is largely just stills, and the few bits that do move look really bad. It is stiff, some of the proportions in the keyframes make zero sense, it is just so much worse than I was expecting. I am really curious to see some staff lists for this thing. At the very least, we know Yamamuro is storyboarding a good portion of this thanks to scans in V-Jump. His supervision is plain to see, obviously the artwork in this has his typical polish, even if I do find that style unappealing, it is pretty polished. I feel this is probably going to be largely a joint effort between him and Toei Animation Philippines, with maybe a few surprises for the action scenes. Frequent collaborators like Jin Inaba and Hiroyuki Itai, Koji Nashizawa, etc. They're probably not out of the question. I'm really not sure what to expect. The preview caught me off guard. I did not think it was going to be quite so poor. Typically previews will show something of worth, maybe a little hint of something great, but there is nothing to be excited about here from a production point of view. If you're someone who's just excited to see these crazy characters on screen in some form or another, then that is great, more power to you, but if this preview is any indication, then I probably wouldn't have your hopes too high right now for any exciting battles. We may be surprised. I hope I'm surprised. I intend to cover this series, so it would be great if I had something interesting to talk about for the next couple of weeks. For some context, or anyone who maybe doesn't follow the Heroes animation stuff, these things are typically not that well animated. They are usually art-driven, often by Yamamuro, but we have had some instances of Takeo Ide and Yoichi Onishi stepping in if he's busy. I don't expect this to be anything but a Yamamuro show. I don't think he's up to much at the moment, but it would be interesting to see some other familiar faces pop up down the line. My biggest concern at the moment is that maybe these things won't be credited. One of the most important aspects of what I do is being able to analyze who worked on the show. If I make a guess, I can take a look at the credits and confirm that. If I'm struggling, then sometimes they can serve as a handy reminder, and if something looks distinct but I don't recognize it, I can use those credits to research each animator's style and try and find something that lines up with the work in the episode. If they don't exist, then my life becomes really hard, especially considering how intensely Yamamuro corrects people. Hopefully they exist, but if not, I may have to take a more general approach to my breakdowns, treating it as a bit more of a review than a deep dive. Fingers crossed, we shall see. We are only a few days out now. I'm not massively positive about Heroes, but I am definitely excited for more Dragon Ball content heading our way. Whatever happens, I will do my best to make it entertaining and informative, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. Thank you so much for listening to me today. If you missed my breakdown on the recent batch of Super movie designs the other day, then make sure you check that out. I threw in a little bit of info about the upcoming trailer, so if that is news to you, then definitely check it out. But that is it for now. As always, be sure to rate the video, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you next time.